It's the first episode where Alex and Max. Today we interviewed Patrice Rushen, who, if you don't know her, she's an icon of pop music.
Yeah.
Today was definitely a more tame episode than we intend on putting onto the internet, but I assure you it's insightful and awesome. Thank you.
Why are you doing that?
Hello, everybody. This is Boy Like Insanity.
Episode 2.
It's Alex, Sweeney, and I, and we're here with Patrice Rushen, Dr. Patrice Rushen.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here, I think.
Yeah, it's a good choice.
I'd say
We'll
I don't think it's a bad thing to be here.
No.
Alex, you start.
Okay, so it said in your biography that you were the director for Janet Jackson's world tour. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us what that was like? Because that's crazy.
It was work.
Okay.
Hard work. That's what it was like. We all know Janet is wonderful, so very talented, but it's a big undertaking because back in that time, that particular tour, I think she was touring on Velvet Rope, I think was the album that was out.
Okay.
So she had all of this material from the album Control and Rhythm Nation and all of that, that was all kind of happening. And so it was a lot to do, lots of people, lots of dancers and, live band. There was some early use of Pro Tools and things like that. So it was a lot to coordinate. And then see what people don't know about touring with a group that size, that you have staff.
Yeah.
So you have, technicians for all of the instruments. You have, in that case, masseuses for the dancers because they're going to be working hard every evening. Buses, trucks, all of these kinds of things. And you have to consider all of that kind of stuff. The costs are crazy.
I would bet.
And, there's just a lot to do in terms of putting it together.
But the profit was there, right?
I don't really know. I got what I got and I left. I didn't go on the tour. I didn't have to go.
Okay.
I just put the band together, auditioned people to play in the group, prepared them to be able to go, worked with her to make sure that the arrangements matched or the things that needed to change to handle choreography, certain other beats or things like that needed to be in, did it, and bounced.
Nice. That's great. Max, do you want to ask the next one? Or?
Totally. How do you feel about artists sampling your music? Like when it comes to, does it depend on the genre or just how do you feel about it?
We saw a thing that was like an article that you were at first really enthused about it, but then you thought it wasn't a great use of creativity.
Yeah. I mean, at first, people were very creative with the way they used to sample. They used to take 4 bars or 8 bars or a particular phrase, and they would turn it or loop it or change something about it and use the sample sort of as an offshoot for something new. Now they're just lazy. They'll just take the whole thing.
Yeah.
And put another lyric on top of it and call it a day and try to pretend like it's a new composition.
So it's just plagiarism?
From that standpoint, it's not as creative and it's not as well used. Sometimes people would take things and they would juxtapose it with somebody else's song and it would be, kind of cool.
Yeah.
You knew that there was some thought that went into it, and now it's just in a lot of cases, not everybody, but in a lot of cases now it's just a rip, and it's a rip because they can't play or they don't want to, or something like that, and that's a little bit different. And from that standpoint, hey, but the idea from the standpoint of as a composer or a songwriter is cool because they got to pay for it.
Yeah, I guess.
And that's the other part about it too, is that it's our work. Should if it's of value, then you should be willing to pay for it.
Oh yeah.
And so that's the other part of it too. Then there's another layer, and it's just a one that speaks to a certain artistic integrity or a certain artistic creative protection. Is that, you know, it's kind of a drag when somebody takes a sample of something that has a certain vibe or a certain spirit or a certain meaning, and then they do something derogatory with it.
Yeah.
Like you're supposed to ask permission.
Mm-hmm.
And I have turned down some,
Okay.
you know, where I've had like a song that was really crafted as a love song, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, since we're on a podcast, I don't mind sharing it. This is a quote, not from me, but the person samples the song and the first lyric says, "Relax, bitch, and take off your clothes." Well, then I said, well, you know what? I can't let you use my piece. I can't let you do that.
No.
Because that was not the impetus for this piece to begin with. And although you can change the meaning, I'm not ready for you to demean women. I'm not ready for you to glorify criminality. I'm not down with you trying to pretend like you are, you know, hardcore and all of this kind of stuff. I'm not ready for all of that affectation of human circumstance and using music to be that medium. And I will stop it. And that's just me.
Yeah.
Some people would say, oh, you know, it's okay. But I that's the other part about it.
No, so like your sampled songs still reflect back on you. Like
My sample
people
songs
recognize
still reflect. I think that the idea of somebody sampling it is because they got something from it, and they're wanting to project, you know, their iteration, their creativity on top of it or alongside it.
that. Yeah, but when their
Yeah.
creativity's like you said, derogatory and stuff.
Well,
like that.
then what's creative about being derogatory? You know what I
Not
mean?
a lot.
Nothing. And especially when it's so very, very, very disrespectful.
Yeah.
You know.
It's just awful, I guess. Wait, did it start out that way, like at first, or have the later years gotten more like that? Like,
Oh, you know, you guys are studying the music, and I think that especially when you're looking at popular music or contemporary music, you look at the songs, you look at what they're about, you look at the poetry, you look at the idea of, you know, so many well-known songs of a certain period talked about love and talked about, you know, the idea of communication in that way,
oh yeah,
right? A whole bunch of songs do that. Yeah. And then later songs also are reflected, and it's always been like this, but there's also songs that reflect the times that you're in. So
definitely.
you have, you know, freedom songs, you got songs of folk songs that come from other places, you know, that are adapted in a new environment where people go or live. You know, so music serves a big purpose in terms of that kind of communication as well. And then you have people who just do who at some point the balance tipped in terms of money being made.
yeah,
And people started doing whatever they felt was going to be effective for shock value. And that shock value sometimes, you know, they run out of ideas really fast. You can only shock people a couple of times.
yeah.
And then you run out of ideas fast, and you have to go for things that are like, you know, outlandish just to be outlandish. And that's the kind of thing that I think
Exactly,
is not very exciting.
Well put. So it said also in your biography, I read that this morning, that you worked with Stevie Wonder, which I didn't know, and he's like one of my favorites. So what was it like working with him?
Well, he's one of my favorites too. I kind of grew up listening to him. I think he had Fingertips out when he was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was like 6 or 7. And so I was like, man, this little kid is kill it. You know, of course we didn't use that term then, but we were just looking at this little guy who was just this amazing people, hence the name Wonder. You know,
Yeah, no, he's
Stevie
crazy.
Wonder. So we enlisted to his music, and now he matured as a songwriter. I was attracted to his lyric writing, and I was also attracted to his voice, but more so the harmonic structure of his songs, because they're deceptive. They sound very smooth and easy, but when you analyze what's going on, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, he's crazy.
It's a lot.
Like reharmonization and stuff.
Oh,
it's wild.
really, it's really nuts.
Genius.
Really nuts. Exactly. And when we had a chance to work together, and you know, later years, he was a fan. He called me one night. I'll never forget this.
Wow.
Called me one night. It was really, I mean, it was like early in the morning. You know, I guess time, it wasn't exactly, he wasn't worried about what time it was. And, you know, he had heard something on the radio, and he said, I just had to tell you, I love this song. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then later we worked in a studio together on a Lionel Hampton record, which was let me know, which I had already suspected, that he was into a lot of different music. He was into jazz, big time.
Oh, yeah.
And all of these other kinds. So he was this legend, vibraphonist and drummer and pianist, Lionel Hampton. He was doing a recording, and and I was to play. Stevie was writing something. Joshua Redmond was playing saxophone, and Lionel Hampton. I can't remember now who was on drums and bass. But the idea was, to see him in a different environment, doing a different thing and producing. And then I had the great honor of doing BET did a Walk of Fame. And every year for a while they were saluting someone. And all these other artists would do the songs of the honoree. Stevie was the honoree. All of these different artists came and did songs, and I was music directing that show. So that was really cool. And we played, together and stuff. And, I run into him on occasion, and we talk periodically.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
And he's a great, wonderful person as well.
I'm not gonna lie. I just found out his name is not Stevie Wonder. That's a stage name. I did not know that at all.
I'm not sure anybody would name their kid Wonder.
What's his real name?
That's an awesome name, though. I would name my kid Wonder.
Well, I think he was
Wonderland
given a
is
name.
his
Totally.
He has a name.
I'd say it fits too.
Yeah, no, his Wonder is definitely it. Is his real name Steven? Or is it not?
No, it is not. His name is Steve Lind.
Steve Lind.
Steve
Steve
Lind.
Lind.
Hardaway Morris. Steve Lind Hardaway Morris.
Steve Lind Hardaway Morris.
That's
crazy.
also a good name. I don't know. They're both cool.
Steve Lind. Okay. All right.
What's
Right.
the craziest fan interaction you ever had? Just some wild stuff.
No.
I feel like this is pretty tame.
This is a walk in the
I
park.
think when I was playing, I used to play way back. I used to play with a group called the Silvers, SYLVERS, and they were like the counterpart to a counterpart. There were many, but they were a counterpart to the Jackson 5 because they were a family of siblings. Great harmony. If you don't know the Silvers, you can still find some of this stuff, online. The oldest brother, Leon, became a big producer later. But the family had this amazing harmony thing happening, and they were on the West Coast. They lived in Los Angeles. And they used to tour periodically, and they had a small band, and one of the gigs that I had, just early on coming up was to play with them. Mm-hmm. And I had a big fro at the time, and that was their thing. They had these massive afros. So they played certain kind of festivals and arenas and stuff like that. They were very big at that time. And one of the festivals that they played, they were so popular that people would chase them down the street. So when they would get off the stage, it was always a big to-do. It's like, how we're going to get you off the stage and things not get crazy backstage. And so because I looked like them because of the fro and the whole thing, I was the decoy. So then, so we'd finish the song, and then I started, and people started coming after me, and then they could go the other way, and then I would meet them around. I mean, it was a whole thing. That'd be about the most
That is crazy.
And a little and scary. And scary.
That is awesome.
Because people were out of control, you know what I mean?
So the whole rest of the band went one way.
They would go this
and
way.
And you by yourself.
Me and maybe two other people.
Oh, okay.
Me and two other people would go the other way, and they would think everybody was going that way. So
That's terrific.
it was pretty crazy.
No,
It was.
You must have.
And they would keep the door open up. The touring was amazing. It was fun. Because I just had to play my part and just watch all the cray-cray around me. It was nuts.
What about the
But-
chase? Was that fun?
The chase?
Yeah.
Well, the chase was actually scary. People would say, people would think that, oh, wow, this is so cool. No, it's really scary. Because when a lot of people are operating only from the standpoint of their zeal and not aware of what's going on around them, and everybody is in that key, everybody's doing that, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for who they're chasing. I mean, it's like they are void of any ability to shift gears. You know, as an individual, you can you can shift gears, but a crowd doesn't shift gears that fast. That's why I told y'all to calm down. Because you see, you rush the front of the stage in your enthusiasm and zeal without the awareness of there's people immediately behind you, immediately to your left, to your right, and maybe in front of you. And as you're pushing to get what you want, you're also pushing everybody. And so it can be a little scary and sometimes a little dangerous.
Like also Astro World.
Like that. If you imagine that on steroids, it could be kind of
Yeah, that on steroids.
Yeah.
Astrofest
That's
happens.
a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Travis Scott. Trying to.
I have one.
Oh, okay.
Did you
sweet.
ever meet Steve Harvey?
Yeah.
Okay, because it said you wrote the theme song for the Steve Harvey show. So did you get the chance to work with Steve Harvey or like work with him?
personally?
Yeah. A lot.
No way. No,
Steve Harvey?
no, Steve Harvey is not my biggest inspiration.
Well, you can't,
but he's great.
that show that I
love
worked
him
on was
now.
his series where he played a high school teacher. And he had I already knew who he was because, comedians are kind of like musicians in that they have a circuit of places that they play to hone their craft. And most of them really love music, are really into music. There's a sympathetic vibration that happens between people who are observers and able to take something inside and present it outside. And that's what musicians do too. So the comedians have that. They are amazing observers. And I think it goes far and wide, and I think it destroys some people. It destroys their ability to grow into themselves. You have fewer opportunities to make mistakes, which is a part of how we all learn stuff. You learn to ride a bike, and you fall first.
Are you a perfectionist?
Am I? No. I mean, no. I have to qualify that because I'm not a perfectionist based upon what I want to do, but other people would say maybe yes, because they'll settle, and I don't. Not for what I'm trying to do. So it's either getting there, it's on the path, it's right, it's moving forward, it's what I intend, or it's falling short. Whereas another person might stop at it's what I intended. You know?
Do you want to ask your questions now?
Yeah, come on in.
Who wants to give me this mic?
It's easier for him
Alex.
because he's holding something.
Okay.
Get up.
Get out of here, Alex.
Get out of here.
Come on.
Okay.
No, the idea was the gentleman gives the lady the chair.
Come on.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Chivalry dead.
Yeah, is chivalry dead?
Could be. I don't think. No, it's not dead. It's not dead.
It's
it
not
might
dead.
be dormant if y'all don't get it together.
I agree.
Revival.
Oh yeah,
It definitely needs a revival. Okay.
definitely.
I'm CPR certified, so I think I'm the guy.
Oh my
for
god,
that.
I'm also CPR certified. I'm double CPR certified. Do you have 2 active CPR certifications?
We're both lifeguards. You should know this.
I know this. Okay.
Awesome.
So my first question is, have you met Taylor Swift before?
No,
Really?
I have not met her before.
I feel like she's like elusive.
Okay.
My second question. Okay, sorry, I just really had to get that out of the way. My second question is, what is your favorite connection that you've made with someone that's like a full circle moment? You know?
Much better question than the first one.
I just wanted to get it out of the way.
Got your shit together, Norah.
There are a lot of those.
Yeah.
Because I got to meet people that I listened to and wanted to be so good that I could help to serve their music. So I have a bunch of them.
Cool.
Quincy Jones is among them. We talked about Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, Sarah Vaughan, flautist Hubert Laws, Smokey Robinson.
Wow.
These were people that were like, wow, these were my heroes and sheroes of my youth, and then to be in situations where I was working with them, Diana Ross, Luther Vandross, Eric Clapton, George Benson, Al Jarreau. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about people that I had been listening to. When I met Herbie Hancock, when I met Chick Corea, these were people that I held in very high esteem.
Yeah.
And then to be able to work with them, Santana, Wayne Shorter, Miles Davis, it's crazy, And then later, seeing people come up, Boys to Men, Gerald Levert, Indy Irie, Jill Scott, just watching how they came up. It was just crazy.
That's awesome.
Because these were people that I really admired anyway.
Yeah.
And then to be able to work with them and help them get what they needed, was pretty awesome.
Wow.
It'll be a full circle moment with us.
Full circle.
Yeah, it'll
be awesome. That'd be
hopefully
that'll be cool.
we will have a full circle moment.
There you go. Well, I've had some of those with some of my students.
Yeah.
Too. Like I told you that the music director for Taylor Swift was a former student
Yeah.
of mine. The group Truesdale, Lauren Jones came from here. Somebody who works with my band was a graduate from here and was a student of mine at USC. Enzo.
Yeah,
Iniello.
Enzo. Yeah, we talked about that.
And so I've started to see it come back from the standpoint of the students that I've worked with, which
That'll
is
be us.
pretty crazy.
We'll keep coming back.
All four of us.
Yeah. Roark and I know.
You mentioned some books, but Roark has trouble reading, so I don't.
True, I actually love reading.
Well, they have audiobooks too for people like
Yeah, what's your favorite book?
I don't know. I don't really have a favorite book. I mean, I just there's things that come to mind on the basis of maybe things that I'm interested in. I read a book. It was kind of a game changer because it made me think about things a little differently, and it's called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And it helped me to offer words to some stuff that I was thinking, but couldn't put it together. I'm like, I see. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's about 1:04.
Okay. That gives us 6 minutes.
6 minutes?
6
Yeah.
minutes.
Awesome.
About the symphony. You wrote a symphony.
Yes.
Yeah, you wrote a symphony.
Yeah.
Officially, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think that's a crazy accomplishment to write an entire symphony. I just want to know what that's like. I mean, that's huge. Like, wow.
It's a whole symphony.
It's big. It's it was something that I kind of did in private protest, actually. By this time I was writing for film and television. Mm-hmm. And typically the bands were small. The groupings were small. Because we were in the studio a lot, and you can do a lot with a smaller group in the studio. But whenever we would do shows, especially those big award shows, I'd be looking, all right, we'll have an orchestra to be able to do all that. No strings this time. No woodwinds this time. And I was doing a lot with small bands and making small bands sound big, and it was great exercise in terms of my orchestration and the challenge of that. But I didn't ever have the full palette of the orchestra as a way to write. And one day I said, man, what am I waiting on somebody to tell me to do it if I want to do something? You want to write for orchestra? Go ahead and write. So I started a piece.
Okay.
And I finished the first part of it, had my cathartic moment, got that done, was boxing it up and putting it in a box. And a guy named Bill Banfield, who was here at Interlochen this week, we were friends. And he said, what are you doing? He just called out the blue. I said, I'm boxing up this piece that no one will ever hear. He said, what's going on? So I told him, and he said, no. He says, hey, you know about these reading competitions, reading contests that some orchestras have a community outreach situation where they'll read new material so that the composers can. I said, I don't know anything about that. See, this is why you need friends. And he says, well, I'm going to send you some materials, and I think you should enter that movement into one of those reading contests. If it wins a spot, I'll meet you there. And I said, okay. So he sent me something from the American Composers Forum. I sent it in. It won a read. Met me in Minneapolis, or St. Paul, actually. He met me there as he promised he would. I heard the reading of the piece. He said, you're going to finish it now. After you hear that back, after you hear back something you worked that hard on for that particular instrument, the orchestra as a unit, you know, it was like a little overwhelming. So even though I'd heard a lot of my music back, you know, for years, I'd not heard it in that context before.
Nothing like that.
So that, and I finished the piece after that. I entered the entire piece in another contest. Now watch this for full circle.
Wow.
In Detroit, the Detroit Symphony had something that they were doing with the Unisys Corporation, where they were funding the idea of doing a read of African American composers. So I entered it in, and I won a spot. And so the Detroit Symphony played the entire symphony, and it was conducted by Leslie Dunner. That's when I met Leslie. Whoa. And that was in 1999.
Crazy.
So
That's insane.
when we tell you that these relationships that you make are gonna come back around and that you guys will see each other over and over, when you have the opportunity to demonstrate who you are, try to come with your best. Because that's what a person is gonna remember. You know, I've run into Bill many other times, Banfield. I ran into him when he used to teach at Berkeley again. That's where I met Camille, your provost. Back then, and to this day, our acquaintance professionally and has grown into a friendship has allowed for now me to be here. So it's like really crazy that I have Bill, and Leslie in the same space, you know.
That's crazy.
That is wild.
We gotta wrap it up. Is there one more question?
Okay, I guess, I mean, there's always like the one where it's like, at the end, it's like, if you had one piece of advice to give to students like us, what would you give?
The one piece of advice that I would give you, well, it's kind of more than one piece, but I think it'll serve the purpose. First one was to calm down. Calm down is the big one.
Emil.
Because everybody has such angst about everything that they're trying to do. Man, y'all will miss the parade because you're so busy, hey. Enjoy the ride. The other part that I would say is that it is a journey. It takes time. The difference is how you spend that time. When you walk around in circles, you don't go anywhere. You'll get further just taking small steps, one in front of the other, even if they're small steps, one in front of the other, as opposed to just spinning. So make sure that the kinds of things that you do, that you can look back and say to yourself, hey, I'm better at that this month than I was last month. I'm better at this today than I was yesterday. I'm more aware of the things that I need to try to do and break that, lose the habits that stop you from your forward momentum. Procrastination still is. I have to really, really work and not saying, I'll get to it. I'm cool, I'll get to it. Tomorrow, next day. It doesn't serve me. And then at the last second, you wish you had more time, but you had it. You had it. So it's about learning where your faults are. We all have them. Learning where your weaknesses are. We all have them. And trying to identify how you overcome and manage them so that you can be about where you're trying to go.
All right.
Um,
Do you want to do an outro or something?
I don't think I don't. Okay.
We haven't really thought
thank
one
you.
of these.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Thank you so much.
That was
You're
actually
welcome.
This
very
was
insightful.
a
Some
pleasure.
good knowledge that you shared.
Thanks for
I'm
having
really
me.
glad.
That was great.
Yeah, this is
No,
less
this is very tame.
Yeah. Our
Okay,
last
well,
one is completely unusable.
Let me just tell you guys something. It's just like what we've been talking about. Now you have a platform where you can reach at minimum at minimum, hundreds of people in one shot. What do you tell them about you when you take a platform like this and you waste it? So it doesn't mean don't have fun. It doesn't mean don't be crazy. It doesn't mean don't have that kind of lightheartedness. But in each of your podcasts, there should be an agenda to at least impart a particular message. At least something that people can hold on to. Yeah, you want them to listen and you want them to be entertained. That's cool. But I just told you that the best entertainment has a plan about what it is that you're going to present. The packaging can look like nothing but straight up fun. But it's chaos and it's dumb to get in front of people and have nothing to say. They got other things to do.
Like how we were talking yesterday about like songs that are about like really serious subjects.
They can't be. They can't be. You can talk about anything. But if you're going to talk about jokes and blah, 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 better make them good jokes. Better make them really the kind that allow people to be able to take away, man, that was so cool. That was so fun. And something that they can remember and they call upon. Otherwise, you're wasting precious time.